If you would turn in your Bibles to Colossians 3, we're going to start reading at verse 12. We're starting to get into some warmer weather, so I hope you're taking advantage of that. I do have an idea to where we can congregate again without violating assembling, prohibitions that affect people when they get together and assemble. And I think we're going to need some warmer weather before we can do that. But I'm thinking that when the weather warms up a little bit, it shouldn't take too much more. But I'm thinking we can set up possibly in like the back parking lot of the church, and if need be, even I can have keyboard out there, a podium, and yeah, I think we can have some sort of service. I'm not sure yet if we want to actually set chairs up because we have to worry about social distancing, or we just stay in our vehicles and park in a semicircle, and roll our windows down, and that affords you a little bit more warmth too if the breeze gets up. But we might be able to may be able to do that in as soon as about 3 or 4 weeks. Maybe the temperature will be up high enough and warm enough to do that by then. Of course, that makes us highly susceptible to weather. But anyway, that's a plan, and we're going to watch it. And I'm going to keep thinking about how to pull that off. And so at least we could come together, just not as close together, in the near future. So that's something to look forward to. Be thinking about that. If you have any suggestions or ideas about ways you see that could work, or things that we would want to include, or maybe things that would make it difficult, please communicate that with me, and I will, input those suggestions and other things into the calculus. Okay, well, Colossians 3, I'm going to begin reading at verse 12, says, "Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another," means putting up with one another, "and forgiving one another, if any man have a quarrel against any, even as Christ forgave you, so also do ye." So I'm going to say that again in more modern vernacular. So, put on as the chosen of God, holy and beloved, put on deep mercy from your heart, from your inward parts, kindness, humility in your mind, humility in regards to your thoughts and the way you see things. Be humble about that, and don't assume that you're always correct. Be meek. Don't be quick to speak, quick to lash out. Be meek, quick to listen, quick to hear. Be long-suffering, be patient. And put up with each other. Give each other some room to make some mistakes sometimes, and to misspeak or do something out of turn. Put up with that for a little bit. Forbear each other. And then forgive. Don't hold on to it. Don't keep getting angry about it over and over again and thinking about it and hashing it out. No. Forgive. Understand that it's a transition. It's an arc. Growth is a slow process. So don't hold on to it and keep and every time they try to behave, you keep lashing out because you're already mad. Um, and if you've got a quarrel, here's what you do with it. You forgive just the way Christ forgave you. So today I want to talk to you from the title, Four Pillars. 4 pillars. Lord, we love you today. We ask you right now in your name to quicken the word to our hearts, anoint it so that we hear it, are made better friends, better family members, better representatives of you through the action of that word in our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. So, these 4 pillars are directly connected to our bonds to other people. Now, I think I have chosen 4 that I think are key and are very important. And if I'm, but I'm not going to say these are the only pillars. And if we wanted to talk about what makes relationships work, I think we could find a lot of other things. But I think these 4 are very important and very key. That's the reason I kept the title of the lesson a little bit more open, rather than saying these are the 4 pillars of relationship or whatever. But these are important. These are things that if you don't have them, your relationships aren't ever going to, I think, grow and prosper and become all that they could. There's going to be a lot of either distance, or if there isn't necessarily distance, then there's going to be animosity and anger and resentment. Um, these are things we need to have if relationships are going to work. The first pillar I would like to draw your attention to, and I think this is an obvious one. I'm sure when I said what makes relationships work, this is probably the first thing that came to your mind, and that is love. Love. We've got to have love. I don't think, contrary to what the Beatles sang, I don't think love is all we need. But we need it. It is hugely important, that's for sure. 1 Corinthians 13:13 says, "And now abideth faith, hope, and charity, these 3, but the greatest of these is charity." And we know charity is an older synonym for the word love. So faith, hope, and love, abideth. But the greatest of these is love. We need, there's different levels of love that impact us and that we need. For instance, we need the safety and security of a friendship level of love. And another way of putting that is we need to have a group that we feel like we belong to. We need to have people that when we see them, we feel a kinship for. We feel comfortable. We smile immediately. We immediately let down our guard and we begin to talk and listen, and just we're the moment we're in that person's presence, we breathe easier. We feel at home. Our defenses come down. We need that kind of safe harbor. We need that kind of love, and that's what friendship gives us. I think that friendship level of love is it's just as vital, I think, as just about any other kind of love. I think obviously the close love between spouses is hugely important. I think the close love between parent and child is important. Um, but I think that those other what we normally think of as deeper kinds of love, I think that there's got to be some point in those particular relationships where friendship better become a component of that belonging, that sense of I can talk to you about anything, and we're close, and you like me, I like you, and I know that you've got my back. Um, I think at some point, I mean, there's you're not going to have that necessarily with your kids whenever they're growing up, right? I mean, there's too much difference in a lot of ways in the perspective of a kid with their child and their parent. There's an age gap. There's a gap of experience. There's a natural gap created by the authority structure needed to guide a child into adulthood and be safe. But after that child has grown up, after that child is moving out on their own and they're becoming autonomous, self-reliant, there's got to be a point where that relationship changes. And if you're still trying to hold on to the old dynamic of you're the parent, they're the child, they need to always, shut up and listen. They need to always, follow your advice. Your relationship is going to become very, very dissatisfying, undeveloped, broken, because at some point you got to start thinking of that child as another adult, and you got to start thinking of that child, well, because they're not a child anymore. You got to start treating them with respect and honor, and beyond respect and honor. Well, we're going to get to respect and honor. By the way, it's on the list. At some point, if you're going to have any impact and influence in that child's life, it's going to be because you develop some camaraderie. The old dynamic of I'm the lead, you follow, I'm the teacher, you learn, speaking to, talking at, that's gone. And I think a lot of parents fail to transition to better relationships with their kids because they hold on to that so tightly that they make the kid bitter and angry, or at least distrustful of the parent, because the parent starts feeling unsupportive. And in truth, they are. You are not supporting your child if they're an adult and they've been an adult, for a number of years, and every decision that comes out of their mouth, you start wagging your finger and telling them what they ought to be doing differently. You don't support them. You don't support them. You want the best for them, maybe, but you're not open to what they have to say, right? I mean, you don't agree with their opinions hardly ever, and yeah, so you're not treating them. You would never behave that way. At least I hope not. I hope you're not behaving that way with your other adult acquaintances. Otherwise, you got few friends, right? And we know that with other friends normally. Like I can't just go telling everyone around me, who's a peer, what they ought to do and how they ought to do it, because man, do they not don't want to be around me anymore. Well, and yet somehow we think we can get away that with our adult children sometimes. So, you've got to give them room. So even the parent-child relationship has got to move where there's some of that friendship love in there, where suddenly it's not authority structure and nurturing as much as it's sharing and trading ideas and feeling a closeness that way, you know. Um, and with a spouse relationship, I think it's the same thing. I think there's an initial stage, obviously early in a romantic relationship, where love, infatuation, and euphoria, all that comes into play, and there's this strong, surge of emotions that actually we know physiologically, um, it actually alters the brain state. And the thing is, you can't live there. As much as we celebrate it and glamorize it on the screen and in books and elsewhere, your body can't maintain that level of hormone. You just, yeah, your receptors would wear out, and then that's what happens. They become immune to it, and it just wears off. So at some point, if that spousal relationship is going to really be vibrant and powerful and beautiful beyond the initial romantic, stage, that's because you start developing a camaraderie and a closeness and belonging there. Um, think about that. There are spousal relationships where when one spouse walks into the room where the other spouse is, uh, they all of a sudden guards go up, right? That's not camaraderie. That's not friendship. That relationship's broken, right? If you walk in and there's a tightness in your chest and you feel like I got to watch what I say, yeah, that relationship hasn't made that transition. It hasn't gone from the romantic initial infatuation level of to a deep, friendship and camaraderie. If you can't talk with your spouse, then hey, you can't talk with you don't have a friend there, really, right? I mean, that's not to say they don't care about you. That's not to say they won't even defend you and have your back and be there for you. But by the same token, both those people are suffering in that relationship because that means they have nowhere to go to really share. And that means, yeah, there's something going on there. We're going to get into that in a minute. I think that'll come up in the next pillar. So we need belonging. We need friendship level love. We need acceptance and support, right? Now, belonging is a whole lot like acceptance, except that belonging is more. I guess it's more just of a group, larger group. And we feel like we're a part of a larger group. Whereas acceptance is each individual saying, "Yeah, you're a part of me, and I like you the way you are. I enjoy hearing your ideas and your versions of things. I like you." We need that, and we got to give that too. It's easy to talk about what we need, but you're never going to get that if you can't give it, right? You need to learn to accept people where they are. Learn to value them for them and not what you want them to be and not what you wish they would do and not how you wish they would behave. But you've got to learn to accept them. Um, and you can't honestly expect that from others if you don't give it out. And support. Once we accept, we can move to the next level, and that's support. Now, I don't believe in the blanket notion of support where whatever our friend is doing, we are totally gung ho and think it's a great idea. I think that's dishonest. I think it's delusional. I don't think you're truly being supportive that way. I think support entails honesty as well. That now, I've kind of already mentioned this underneath friendship and belonging, but if every time your friend opens their mouth, if you tear down their idea, you're not being supportive for sure, right? That's not supportive either. Maybe you're being honest, but you don't know how to be supportive. All you know how to do is be critical, and that says to me that you and that person are really on opposite wavelengths. You're not really connecting. You're not really appreciating. Well, you haven't accepted them for them, right? You've got to learn to step aside of what your normal goals in life and how you want to operate. You got to learn to see it from their perspective to some degree. And then once you're in that perspective, you've accepted them, then you can support them from that perspective. And if they're sharing ideas with you or they're talking to you and you disagree with it, it wouldn't be your choice, but you see what they're trying to achieve from who they are and the person you've accepted, then you can say honestly, well, I don't know if this will get you there. I don't know if I thought, I think this is what you've been trying to do, right? And if this is your goal, and this is who you're trying to be and what you're trying to do in your life, now you're wanting to do this. This seems like the opposite of that. It seems counter to that. So that's being honest yet supportive. I'm not giving them blanket. Oh, every idea you have is great. I love that one too. I love that one too. No, you're not just being. That's not supportive either. That in fact. If they've got a bad idea within the structure of what they're trying to achieve, and you don't share this, say, "Hey, I think that's going to totally wreck your plans." You didn't support them. You encouraged them to proceed, but you encouraged them to mess up. You played a role in facilitating, what becomes a catastrophe later, right? So I think we can be supportive and honest, but it starts with accepting them for them, and then from that perspective, once you understand them and you accept them, then you can be supportive and honest in that vein. So love, I think all of those are built into love. I think you've got to do that with your children especially once they reach adulthood. You can't be buddies when they're kids, but you can be buddies once they're adults. You might not. Not that doesn't happen for every child and parent, but it does happen for some, and it does work for some. But it's going to have to be one of friendship. They got to feel like they belong, and you belong to them. And you got to accept them for who they are. Boy, sometimes that's hard to do whenever they're our family or our kids, right? Um, we we're watching our children slowly move from childhood to adulthood, um, and generally speaking, they don't always make the choices right now. Even we have one of our kids still at home, and she doesn't always make the choices that we had foreseen or hoped she would make. The same's true for our other child who's already out of the home. But we can't get hung up on these notions that I was hoping they would grow up to be this, and I was hoping they were going to go here and get this kind of education and get this particular kind of degree. We can't do that to them. We just got to be, when they're moving in a positive direction and they're making smart choices and doing things, even if it's not the choices we wanted, I've got to say, I accept you. I'm happy for you. I support that. If they start making some destructive choices, we got to be careful. We can become confused as to what's destructive and what's not our opinion of what they ought to do. There's not one and the same, right? We may have ideas of, oh, they were going to grow up, and I could just see them. I knew they were going to be a doctor, right? And then they grow up and decide they want to be a builder, right? Doctor or builder, right? You know what? Don't get hung up on the doctor thing. Don't get hung up that you thought they were supposed to be what you consider way up here, which I think that's a false thing anyway. Sure, more dollars, but that we can't fall prey to the notion that the amount of money someone makes it says how valuable they are and what they contribute to society is. I think we got to watch out for that trap. And that's a lot of where that comes from, especially with our kids. We got to accept even our children when they grow up as they are, even when they do something different with their lives than what we wanted. That doesn't mean we always say it's a good thing. You know, we always say, yeah, please do that. I agree with everything you're saying and do it. When it's self-destructive, when they're getting themselves into a situation, if we see that, I think we're obligated to say, hey, and then we got to be willing to pull back from that. If you keep harping on it and you keep driving on it, you're going to drive them away, right? You're moving beyond acceptance to insistence. You move beyond, okay, I accept you, but you're making a bad choice, and I'm not going to let our relationship move anywhere else except we're going to talk about this bad choice every time you see me until I hear you agree with me. That's not support. That's not acceptance. It's not acceptance. You can move to a place where you're not accepting them any longer. So anyway, so the next pillar is trust. Trust. Let me ask you a question. When we bring up the word trust, implicit in the notion of trusting is the realization that there is some risk. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the word trust at all. If every relationship there was no risk at all, if every time people got together there was only positive and people always just helped each other and loved each other and never hurt each other, there would be no need to even come up with the concept of of trust. But we have the word trust because we know that sometimes people can't be trusted. We have the word trust and the concept of trust because we know that there is the real potential for people to wrong each other and to cheat each other and to hurt each other in whatever way they can violate the relationship. So the question becomes, well, why trust? If there's a risk, why should I trust? Why do I want to put myself out there and more than likely sometimes get hurt for taking that chance? I think we have to trust and take that risk because it's the only way to get the rewards, right? Not every relationship is going to be a harmful relationship. Not every exchange in a relationship. Maybe I think the reality is there are relationships that sometimes do hurt us and sometimes betray our trust and sometimes let us down. But that's not to say that's the whole relationship, right? And I'm always referring to this, but studies have shown that people that live alone suffer. They suffer psychologically and emotionally. They have more problems with depression and other mental illnesses. And so we are designed to be in contact and in communion with others. And that means not only is there a reward to trust, but the rewards outweigh the damage and the hurt. It's worth it. The only time it maybe I shouldn't say the only time, but when it's not worth it, or when it feels like, I should say, when it feels like that the hurts outweigh the benefits, it could be that that's because the hurts dominate your thought, that you focus on them, that you can't let go of them, right? And that's just dooming you and your future to be one that's lonely and one that's angry and one that's bitter. So you're hurting yourself, even if you're not conscious of making a decision. If pain and irritation and discomfort and betrayal, if you let those be the only things that you see in the other person, well, you're denying yourself a relationship there. You're denying yourself the rewards that only come through relationship, the benefit of love and camaraderie, and eventual. Sometimes it takes time, right? We know this. It takes time. It takes time to build acceptance. It takes time to build camaraderie. It takes time to build trust. And it's and if you spend that time angry and regretting the ways they got it wrong, angry and mad and blaming, then that time you're not building that, are you? No, the whole relationship becomes defined by the mistakes and the betrayals and doesn't ever really become a relationship. In fact, it ceases to be a relationship not the kind of relationship we're talking about. It's one, sure, you're connected to that person, but you're connected in a bond of anger and dysfunction, right? So you've got to trust. You got to take the risk if you're going to get the rewards that come only with a relationship, and the rewards that you need. As a human being, you need others, and you need the rewards that come with relationships. So you've got to take the risk. You got to take some of the pain, but there's some real benefits that are worth it. So who do you trust and why? I want you to think about that right now. Think about people in your life that you deem trustworthy. I hope you have several names coming to mind. I hope that you say, oh, yeah, I trust this person. I trust this person. But if you're in a situation where you're looking through the people in your life and you're having a hard time coming up with anybody, it could say something about the people in your life and who you choose to spend your time with. It also definitely says something. Not only could, it definitely says something about you. It could say that you tend to gravitate for whatever reason to people who are broken and don't have a strong sense of morals or sense of how to treat others. It also can mean that or it could mean maybe a combination of both, that you also don't know how to have good relationships, and that you frequently cause pain and drama and problems in your relationships that make you only see the bad sides of people. So it could be some of them, and it could be some you. I mean, it's going to be some you. The question is how much it's you and how much it's them. But on some level, if that's all you've got in your life is people you don't trust, people that you as soon as you see their face in your head or hear their name, you're like, yeah, that definitely says something about your choice of relationships, both who you choose and how you conduct yourself within them. So you've got to change. Let me make that clear. If you have no people in your life that are trustworthy, you've got to change. You've got to change how you treat them. You've got to change who you choose. The first one, it could be you've got a lot of great people in your life, but you don't know how to treat them, and so you're creating distrustful relationships. So if you can't come up with someone you trust, you've got to change. Not them, you. You can never change them anyway. So if you're focused on that, well, that's part of your problem. But if you have someone in your life, you come up and you say, yeah, these people are trustworthy. Why do you see them as trustworthy? What have they done? How have they behaved in your life? What are you remembering? Are you remembering times whenever you gave them a secret and no one else found out about it? Are you remembering times when they told you something was true and come to find out it was? Are you thinking of times whenever they offered to do something, or maybe they didn't even offer, they just showed up and they did it for you. They provided for you. They helped you in some way. Yeah, I think these are the kinds of things hopefully you're thinking about. I mean, there are other reasons. There are a few bad reasons, a couple that we're going to mention in a minute, why people trust. But those are good reasons. We're trusting people not just because for whatever reason we think they're the people we're supposed to trust, right? Real trust isn't based on obligation. Well, you're my family member, so yeah, I got to trust you. I think we're fooling ourselves. It could be that sometimes we do make a decision to say we trust them. I'm going to trust you with this, but when we do that, we're saying I'm having to put aside my fears and my skepticism about this particular person in this particular situation. But I'm not talking about that kind of trust. I'm talking about we really feel like this person, we know how they're going to behave, and that they're going to be consistent. And yeah, so those are the things. People who have proven themselves, they've demonstrated trustworthiness through how they've treated you, how they've treated others. And what about this? Maybe a part of whether or not they're trustworthy is not just the fact that they have intentionally been good and thoughtful and considerate of you and considerate of others, but also how they've treated information. Honesty, right? Honesty. And not just honesty, accuracy. Like, I don't trust a person too much, first of all, that lies to me. I don't trust a person too much who sees information, who takes in something, and somehow it just bounces off. They ignore those facts and don't incorporate that into the way they consider something. They're thinking about a particular situation. For instance, if they've got animosity against someone else, maybe not me, maybe I'm talking to someone I consider a friend, and they start expressing frustration and animosity toward another party, and you say, "Wait a minute, I hear what you're saying, but they actually didn't do the thing you're saying. That was someone else." And then that person comes back with, "Yeah, but they're still snakes. Yeah, but I still don't like them." Guess what? I now trust you less because you have demonstrated that you can't be honest about the information coming in, that you have more loyalty to your own opinion and your own bias than you do to being honest and accurate, right? If you can't change your opinion with the information coming in, then I don't trust you too much. Accuracy. There's been a whole lot of use of the word honesty as some sort of hallmark of character. And it's been attributed to people who say whatever they're feeling in the moment, right? And they just run with it. They just out, in the head, into the ear, into the head, out the mouth. That's not full honesty. Sure, you really thought it at the moment, but a moment later you think something else. It's the opposite. A moment later you have another opinion. You say that too. Just because you say whatever's in your head at the moment, that's not honesty. Real honesty. The real honesty, the kind that's worthy of trustworthiness, is accuracy. I gave you one way that a person didn't care about accuracy. Well, another way that we can not care whether something's true or not, and therefore our honesty is only of so much value, is when we're talking about a topic or something we actually have no expertise in, and we ignore people who are more knowledgeable than we are. We ignore the experts, we ignore the professionals, and we just have our opinions. And because we say it, well, that's honest, and it makes sense to me, and it makes sense with the people I'm talking about, and it all fits together in this way. Never mind that I'm excluding the people who have studied it more and spent more time with the actual thing. Yeah, that's not honesty. That's not, because it doesn't care whether or not it's accurate. It doesn't care to really weigh all the information and do research and work. So I can't trust that kind of person either. I trust them to really speak their mind, but I trust what they're speaking in their mind to be about having this much insight, right? It's about that. It's like surface level information that they just gotten from wherever. So yeah, I don't trust that kind of person. I know what they are. I know who they are, and I trust them to be them. I trust them to say things that are inappropriate or wrong or not care. But I can't say that I trust them, right? As far as our relationship and being open with them. Here's some bad reasons people trust. It's been interesting. There's been some studies done in the last few years about the effect of facts on people's opinions. And and I'm not going to go into why people have started doing more of those kinds of studies, but they have, and they've come up with some interesting results. One of the things that they have found in research is that when a person holds an opinion, and this is not true of just certain people, this is a human trait. It's one way we as a species are broken. And hopefully, if we can recognize it in ourselves, we can try to, in the moment, compensate and not do it. But here's what they found, is when a person has a particular opinion and someone else opposes them, first of all, the automatic reaction is to double down and to insist, right? And say, no, I'm wrong, or I'm right, you're wrong, and to try to tell them why. But here's where it gets worse. The more facts that the person who disagrees with him throws, the more information, the more proof, the more actual evidence, not hyperbole, not anecdote, not personal experience. I'm talking about actual evidence. The more real evidence they have, not that personal experience is not evidence, by the way. It's just very poor evidence. You've got to have more than that. The more the person who has the more evidence throws at them, what should be the case is that the person who's actually wrong should be overwhelmed by all the evidence, say, whoa, wow, I've got to rethink this. That's not what happens. We as humans have the opposite. The more facts we tend to hear about on the opposing opinion, the more we set our jaw and dig our heels in. And we hear less. The more they say, the less we hear. And that's just a human reaction. So And the things that we're relying on in that moment, the things that we're depending on to justify our position and feel like we're still right, are bad reasons, right? They're, and a part of that is we have some bad reasons for who we trust. For instance, we tend to trust people who agree with us. Yeah, that's a bad reason to trust. If you've got someone in your life that almost always agrees with you, I'm not saying they're distrustful. I'm saying you better not value their opinion too much. I'm not saying don't value it. Don't value it too much, though. If you got someone who always agrees with you, then they may not either A, they're scared to contradict you, or B, they just see things like you do. That means they're going to have the same blind spots you are, and we all have got blind spots. We all have blind spots, so you can't trust people just because their opinion agrees with you. There's a mechanism built into human psyches called confirmation bias, where our brain naturally it's just part of the psychological process of how the brain works. Our brain naturally filters out things that aren't in agreement with the way we see already. It just naturally does. We can't hear things too different. We literally don't ever hear it unless we really force ourselves to slow down and go word by word. It's not natural to hear all the data. It is natural to hear the parts that either A, agree with us, or B, we can tear down immediately so that we can keep our position. That's the way the brain works, okay? So trusting someone just because they agree with you is a bad reason to trust. By the way, trusting someone because they're familiar to you, that's a bad reason to trust. Another phenomenon that's been documented over the last few years is the methods, and this is true, it doesn't matter which side of the spectrum you're on politically or sociologically or whatever. This is true about humans. We tend to believe information because it comes from friends more than because it makes actual logical sense or there's good evidence behind it. And a part of how I found this out was the way that social media has influenced, the way we're begin to segregate ourselves even more and more and divide into groups and groups and groups, and the way we're soaking in news. We take in more news from social media than we do from actual news sources. And that's from friends sharing with friends, sharing with friends. And because friends are attached to it, that drops down the trust, the skepticism. And our trust is open. We're more open to information from friends. It has nothing to do with the quality of the information. It has to do with the fact it came from a friend. And it can be totally bogus. It can be totally left or right wing nutso. And just because it comes from a friend, well, I know. Here's what I know. My friend told me. You don't know that. You need to go check it out. You don't know that. You need to go do the research. You only check the stuff your friend said. You only listen to see how many friends were saying it. Or if you did any kind of digging, you just went and looked at the places they were already looking. And guess what? People outside the United States, nefarious people who aren't there for our benefit, who want to sow confusion and dissension among us, they see our weakness there. That's a human weakness, but our particular structure in society and with social media and the internet has made us uniquely susceptible for that to be exploited, and it has been. Don't trust just because it's familiar. Don't trust just because they agree with you. All right, have more self-respect than that. Do some digging, do some research. Trust yourself enough to encounter different opinions and be able to incorporate new information even when it disagrees with you. So how does someone's trustworthiness affect you? Well, first of all, there's an emotional response, right? I think it goes back to that notion of friendship and belonging. You feel safe around that person. So one's trustworthy, you feel comforted in their presence because you know you're not going to be mishandled. You know you're not going to be hurt and abused in the presence. You have a higher degree. You know your voice is going to be safe. You know your opinions are going to be safe. You feel an emotional comfort level. And then finally, it affects how we behave around them. We behave differently in situations when we feel threatened than situations where we feel comfortable, don't we? Yeah, you're not really you in the first one. You're more natural. You're more open. in the second one. So it affects our behavior when we're around people who are trustworthy. We're excited to see them. We see them at a distance and we seek them out instead of letting them pass by or going the other way. We spend more time with them. Yeah, that's the kinds of things that happen when we're in someone's presence who we trust. So therefore, if we want that kind of action, we also need to be someone they can trust. When they see us, they actually come to us and their smile naturally falls and they openly begin to share with us and we have an exchange of ideas, right? Third pillar, respect and honor. We all know Exodus 20:12, honor thy father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land where the Lord your God has given you. The famous one of the 10 commandments there. And there are lots of scriptures for honoring and respecting. And I see these two as closely linked, but not exactly the same. I think respect is that thing you feel for someone who has done. You see their character over time. You see how they have, and that's the thing. This is over time thing. Respect happens over time. Real respect. I don't mean societal taboos about behaving as if we respect or honor. I'm talking about actual respect. That happens over time by watching a person's life, watching a person's actions, hearing their wisdom, hearing their knowledge, seeing their achievements. And we begin to have a respect that grows and grows and grows for that person over time. So that's more of a passive inside thing. And then how we behave and act but based on that respect is what I call honoring. Honor your father and mother. That's an active verb. That's in Exodus 20:12, that's called an imperative or a command style sentence. You do this. You honor your father and mother. So honor is action, right? It's how we treat others. It's how we treat the people we love. It's how we talk to them. It's how we consider their choices and their words. It's occasionally even some active thing like giving them recognition. And even when it's not a big ceremony or a big landmark moment in life, or we still give recognition for when they do something well, and we still acknowledge whenever they've contributed and when they've done something positive, and that's how we honor. So respect is what builds over time, and honor is how we carry that respect out and show it. Now, all of that means if that's going to be reciprocal, we've got to do things over time that build respect for ourselves, right? We've got to do something worthy of respect. We've got to behave in such a way that garners that, and do things that are noble in character, do things that are remarkable in their achievement, do things that are consistently good and build a day by day investment. We have to behave in a way and do things in a way and talk in a way that's worthy of being respected. And then we can count on being honored and recognized and appreciated later, right? Then we can count on them, opening up to us and giving us opportunities, positions, and inviting us to be a part of other things. And so if we see that's how it works for them, then we've got to make sure that we're behaving in a way that will create the same effect. Respect happens after trust. We've talked about love, trust, and we're talking about respect. Respect happens after trust. In other words, you never really get to the place of respect if the trust is broken and you never can get close enough to really see that person in action and watch them over time, because it's an over time thing. In other words, trust naturally leads to respect if that other person, or if you, vice versa. Respect happens over time if trust is first established. Second, turn my notes here. True honor and respect aren't built in norms. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have very valuable and sensible norms about behaving respectfully. I think that's important for a society to be able to work with each other, and we seem to have forgotten this. And the only time we seem to remember, and here's an example of that confirmation bias, the only time we seem to notice whenever it's not being, observed is when the other party's doing it. Oh, how dare them talk this way about, the particular person that we're all behind. Meanwhile, we're talking about that way about the other person that they're behind, right? Yeah. So I think there are some good social norms about acting in a respectful way. When you encounter people in authority, or even when you encounter just people in the community, we have to give them. There has to be some common decency, a sense of respect for fellow human beings, and if the society is going to work. But that's not true respect for that person for who they are, right? That's superficial, because that's blanket. It's general, it's blanket. You do that simply because this is the norm and it's the way that people ought to be treated. But it's not the kind of respect we're talking about. It's not respect built based on that person actually being a noble. Because it could be that the police officer that you're being very respectful for is in fact a crook. It happens. It could be that that you're the person you're meeting on the street, your neighbor that you give a nod and a smile to and show them that respect. It could be that they're horrible people, right? But we have to do those things to keep society working if we're ever going to work with each other. But that's not the kind of respect we're talking about. That's not real respect. And if you are depending on that in your life for you to get respect and honor, I am owed that because I have this particular title. I am owed that because I have this particular position at work. I am owed that because I am your mother or your father, right? I am owed that position-based respect. Sure, on a lot of occasions, people will behave like that, but it's possible to behave within those norms and show respect while actually still not actually respecting. I'm treating you that way because I'm expected to, but I really know who you are, right? Yeah. So whenever you are demanding that, or someone in your life is demanding that from you, what they're saying is I want the social norm shortcut to respect without doing the work of earning it. And that's not real respect. True honor and respect can't be demanded into existence, right? You can't actually say, you know, I'm your boss, so therefore you're gonna respect me. No, what you're actually insisting on, I'm your boss, therefore you're going to act as if you respect me. Meanwhile, you're still thinking I'm an overbearing jerk, right? And if I'm talking like that, I am an overbearing jerk. If you ever, I hope no one under the sound of my voice has ever said a sentence like that. Take the word boss out, put any title you want. It can be a familial relationship like parent or aunt or uncle or grandparent. Uh, it could be, some other position. I don't care. But if you ever said, you will respect me because what are you thinking? You're being an overbearing jerk. Try earning the respect, not just having a title that thinks you're entitled to it. Try behaving in an honorable, respectful way, doing great things, investing kindness and compassion and patience, forbearing one another, and earn the real respect instead of expecting just the face and the mask of respect that society expects. Which one do you really want? Final pillar, understanding. I think the other three are contingent upon this. Now, once again, I think this is one that has to be built over time, and to some degree, I guess all of these, time has an impact on them. Hopefully, if you're in a good relationship, love grows over time. Hopefully, if you're in a good relationship, trust grows over time. Hopefully, if you're in a good relationship, honor and respect grow over time. If they're moving the opposite directions, that relationship's broken. But this is one that not only is this something that can only happen over time, it only develops over time. There is no initial stage really. It's also the other three are so contingent upon it. Understanding, knowing that person, getting to know that person, coming to know that person. And that happens how? It happens through time and communication. So I've already mentioned time. You can't truly know a person. People, each of us individually are very complex. We're very layered. There's all kinds of things that have gone into who we are today, years and years of acquaintances and incidents and choices and just we're layered. We're like these tiny nodes of society and culture where we've soaked in certain things and disregarded other things, and how the English language works and how society, all of that's been kind of been simmering and all put together in one pot that is called us. And man, so we're complex things, man. We're like little galaxies walking around each of us, just full worlds within our heads. And therefore, it takes time to really get to know someone, to understand them. And for that time to be spent in a way so that it actually does lead to understanding in those other three things, well, there has to be good communication and sharing going on that whole time. In other words, I can spend a whole lot of time with a person, but if they never talk, I don't know. I don't understand them. I can spend a whole lot of time with a person, but if all I ever show them is a fake facade, or if all I ever show them is anger and resentment, if all I ever show them is this one side or a fake side, they don't know me. They don't understand me, right? So not only does it have to be time, but there has to be communication during that time, right? Where we're actually sharing, exchanging ideas. Now, if you get that right, here's how I see understanding impacting the other three. If you love someone that you don't actually understand, and this is where early relationships are set up to break down later, because they become very infatuated with the person, but they haven't had time to get to know them yet. They think they understand them and they don't. But if you love someone that you don't understand, you don't love them. You love a fiction of them in your head. You love a myth of them, which you attribute to them, but it's not them. You don't love them. You love the idea, your idea of them. Can't love what you don't understand. If you trust someone you don't understand, you don't trust them, but a false assumption you've made about them and how they behave in their actions and motivations. You can't trust someone you don't understand. Just because you think you do doesn't make it so. If you honor someone you don't understand, then you give honor to them on false pretenses, which is therefore honor they don't deserve. Either A, they are in fact dishonorable because you don't understand them and you see in them traits that they don't have and achievements they haven't actually gotten, and you ignore actually horrible things they've done, then you're giving them honor. You give an honor to a dishonorable person, even though you don't recognize their dishonor. Or B, maybe they're not a dishonorable person, but because you don't understand them, you don't know what their actual achievements and actual good behavior is. You're giving them the wrong honor. You're giving them honor, but it's not the honor they deserve. They deserve honor for who they actually are and what they've actually done, but you have a misunderstanding them because you only know them on the surface level, and therefore you're giving them honor for stuff that's not even them. Guys, I want to apologize to you. I don't know if it affected the video feed or not, but I am doing this on my personal laptop today. And I've had some issues with the other one. It seems the signal gets a little bit weak. It tends to freeze up. Well, the thing about mine is it goes into sleep mode if I don't touch the mouse pad after a little bit, and my screen all of a sudden went blank. So if you lost me a second ago, I'm back. But anyway, we're just about done. So we have to spend time to understand people. We have to spend time to get to know them, and which means, first of all, we've got to communicate. That means we've got to work on accepting them and giving them a sense of belonging. And then we can start to get to know, and then we start to communicate and talk. And then over time, that understanding will enhance how much we love them. Because first of all, we actually loving them, right? It will enhance how much we trust them because we'll really know what they're capable of and what they've proven themselves to be. It will enhance our respect and honor for them. And I think it'll not only enhance it, it will enable traits in them. People will be more likely to behave honorably and do noble things, do great things, once they feel the safety of a supportive relationship. Once they know they're loved and valued, and someone sees in them potential and the capability of being a wonderful moral human being, they tend to want to live up to that. They tend to feel empowered to do that, right? So take time with each other. Right now, we've got this opportunity to take all kinds of time with each other. I hope you're spending it looking at each other and not sitting side by side looking at a screen. I hope you're spending it getting to know, sharing, talking, doing things that actually bring the other person out and encourage them, and not things that allow them to remain in their silo. You know, sharing space is not just sharing space is not sharing. Okay. I hope you're sharing more than space. I love you. Have a wonderful Sunday, and may you be blessed. And be thinking about suggestions and ways that we can actually get together here in a few weeks when the temperature's a little warmer and yet maintain some social distancing. But until then, or until I talk to you on the phone this week or next Sunday's lesson, I love you. Don't hesitate to call me. I definitely miss your face, and I can't wait to see it again. Lord bless.